Welcome back to another episode on the Doughty podcast. My name is Doughty, and I'm going to be talking to you today about child work and how child healing is really the key to feeling 100% worthy, whole, and complete. And a lot of also some of the other stuff I've been talking about recently has to do with, maybe you've heard me talk about it, comes to the attachment style. The attachment style of being anxious, avoidant, or secure. These are three different attachment styles that develop from the time we're young. And when we're young, we develop these attachment styles, and then we continue to live the patterns out over and over and over again. And in this episode, what I want to do is show you how I'm healing my own inner child and show you a process for doing this that I've shared once or twice before that really just changes everything. It makes it so much easier for you to let go. It makes it so much easier for you to really stop old patterns, self-doubt. Many of us, I think, I'll talk for myself at least, I think that I've had a very strong intention to feel significant in the world because when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily feel significant. So one thing that I decided to do was to make daily videos on YouTube to grow an audience, to add value to people. But subconsciously, I think there's a part of myself that didn't feel like especially when I started that, I was passionate about it. Don't get me wrong. I love making YouTube videos. I love helping people. But even that, helping people, while it is a positive thing to do, if we're doing it for the wrong reasons, that's where the child healing work comes in. Healing the inner child. The inner child is what I'm talking about. I realized I kept saying like the child work, the inner child work. When we heal the inner child, we allow a more powerful, empowered version of us to be unleashed, a more authentic version of us. But from childhood experience, from growing up, I think that a lot of my motivation for me to, and I think it happens a lot, people that are successful, that have a lot of willpower, it's almost like they start to associate that success with their worthiness. And what a hell of a drug, right? Like, what will people do to feel worthy? What will people do to get into a relationship or to get someone back that they fell out of a relationship with? If their worthiness is tied to it, they'll pretty much do anything. If they also, their sense of esteem, if it's not very high, then they're looking to the outside. And it's almost like if once these parameters are met on the outside, then I can feel a certain way. But in general, one of the most powerful things to understand about our own inner child is that we all have an inner child inside of us that maybe we haven't been putting a lot of attention on. And if we've been ignoring our inner child, we'll find that then we're motivated by things that aren't as fulfilling, that aren't as authentic. And if we don't heal our inner child, we live a life where we feel like we're not worthy, we're not whole, we're not complete. And deep inside, there's a child that craves significance. And when I talk about, I've talked a lot about on this channel or this YouTube, this podcast, I talk a lot about the people pleaser mentality, how to heal being a people pleaser, how to heal being a nice guy. These all come from the inner child. These all come from a wounded inner child that believed when the inner child was young, that in order for the inner child, the inner child is a part of us that was wounded. And back in time when we were a child, there was something that happened where either our needs weren't met, we didn't feel worthy, we didn't feel whole, we didn't feel complete. And therefore, we thought we had to be something other than we were in order to be loved. So a lot of the people pleaser nice guy mentality, that comes from not feeling worthy and complete growing up and thinking. A lot of times I talk about too, parent pleasing. It's parent pleasing. People pleaser is when at a certain point in time you're a parent pleaser. You had to make somebody happy by being a certain way, by being different than you actually were. And then you develop this belief system that says, hey, there's something wrong with me. I know, especially, if you know my story, 7 to 16 years old, the whole ex-stepmom thing, I had to be perfect in order to receive love. And even then, it wasn't really love. It was just, I had to be perfect. And even then, it normally wasn't good enough. Even then, it was like, oh, I did something wrong. Or you cleaned this, and but you didn't do it correctly, according to some really high standard. And what that causes is me to think, well, there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. Maybe if I do it better next time, maybe then I'll be loved. And what happens is the inner sense of worthiness is externalized. And then there's a chasing of that external validation, that external sense of worthiness. So for me, let me tell you a little bit about my own inner child and how I've been healing my own inner child over these last months and years, really. But for sure, these last months, I've been really focused on healing my inner child. Now, first off, between the ages of 7 to 16 years old, if you know my story, there was the abusive ex-stepmom. 16 years old, my dad divorced her. My brother and I had all this freedom all of a sudden. We were allowed to have friends. We were allowed to watch TV. We were allowed to eat the food we want, because prior to that, we were pretty much just working outside all day, normally locked out of the house. My dad was a firefighter, so he was home half the time, wasn't home the other half of the time. And it was like a lack of freedom. And there really was no fun. There really was no fun between 7 to 16 years old. It was just work. And in some ways, I think that work may have led me to being a very hard worker in life. Going full time with my passion, creating a lot of content on YouTube. People used to tell me these things that I think I used to get a validation high off of. People would be like, whoa, Aaron, how do you make so many videos on YouTube? How are you able to do this? There was only one, maybe Ralph Smart. He makes daily or 3 times a day videos on YouTube. And when I started, I remember that most people were making once, twice a week. They were making videos, and I was like, I'm going to go daily. It's crazy. I'm going to go daily. And then I started doing it, and I had this work ethic, and I started to get a sense of validation. I started to feel different. And I think that in some ways it served me because it led to the success and the growth of the channel. But on the other side of that, there was a double-edged sword, which was this limiting belief that believed I had to work hard in order to be successful. Even 2 years after I made daily videos on YouTube, I was afraid to stop making daily videos because I was afraid that the growth would stop and then I wouldn't be worthy anymore. And it sounds ridiculous to think, but that's actually what was happening. So there I am, and then people are telling me Aaron, other YouTubers are Aaron, you're able to make a lot of YouTube videos. How do you do it? And I'd be I don't know. It's just who I am. But really, it's a feeling of significance from my childhood of working very hard, doing yard work for 8 hours a day, then going to school and then coming back and doing more yard work. We had pigs, we had goats. We had a half acre of property, so there's always stuff to do. It's in Vegas too. We had pigs and goats and stuff in Vegas, which is really rare. In Vegas, it's not a common thing at all. And at 5 a.m. every day, you had to be able to feed those pigs. Those pigs were loud. And at 5, when the sun comes up, they hungry. So you had to. That's what I had to do. But I realized that because I didn't have a childhood, and because I was also mentally, emotionally, and physically abused between 7 to 16 years old, there was this feeling of not being worthy and of really parent pleasing too. I was a parent. I had to be perfect in order to be loved. One thing I really got to learn too is I got to learn a lot of psychology. I was able to read I can read people extraordinarily well, and I think because my ex-stepmom is a narcissist, but not my stepmom no more. Because she was, so for example, if I wanted to go to a debate tournament, and I spent a whole month studying for this debate, and it was a week before the debate tournament, because that was what we would look forward to, is school activities, because we weren't allowed to really have, do anything else. I'd be told 4 days before the debate tournament, you're not going to the debate tournament because you didn't do X, you didn't clean this properly, you did this when you're supposed to do this. And unless you admit that you did this thing, you're not going. And I'd be like, I didn't do that though. Like, why would I admit that I did something I didn't do when I really didn't do it? Doesn't matter. You don't admit to it, you're not going. So then it was like I had to really learn manipulation in a way. I had to school her in a way. And here's what I had to do. This is what I had to learn how to do. If I didn't want to go to like a band camp tournament, I'm like, I haven't really been studying for band camp. I haven't been practicing. We have this tournament this weekend. I really don't want to go. Maybe I can get out of it. And I really wanted to go, right? So then my ex-stepmom would be like, oh, you think you're getting out of that band camp tournament? It's your fault you didn't practice. You're going. So whatever I wanted was the opposite, right? So eventually I learned. But the shadow side of this is that then it's like my inner child thinks that I have to be a certain way in order to get my needs met, but also that I'm not worthy, whole, and complete already. And that I also would assume that other people don't want me to be happy or other people don't want to give me what I want or need. There's like some string attached. So that was kind of like a mentality that I had growing up. And what I had to learn to do was to let go and do the child work and literally imagine me talking to my own inner child. The different aspects of my own inner child. Even like, I think that the reason now that I have such a lighthearted mentality in my personal life, especially on YouTube, it's a little bit of a different story on YouTube because on YouTube I'm making videos and like there's an intention there. Sometimes in some of my videos you'll see more of my personality. On Instagram you'll for sure see more of my personality. But there's a lot of it's been me letting go of any level of seriousness. And that as I let go of the seriousness, I have more fun. And my own authentic self, I have a very childlike sense of humor. I mess around a lot. I'm very sarcastic. I love joking around. I love laughing. That's who I really am. That's what I really love. And I think that the part of the inner child in me wants to be in that way, wants to have fun, wants to be that way. But there's a serious shadow of the old version of me that thinks there's something wrong with laughing. Thinks there's something wrong with having fun. Things have to be more serious. And I think a lot of the inner child work for me has been to actually nurture my inner child. And I know it's okay to have fun. The more I have fun, the more authentic I feel, the more fun life is. But it's me giving myself permission to like realize that my inner child was held back from having fun and had to have everything be so serious growing up that of course I feel guilty sometimes for having fun or for joking around a lot. And these are all different kind of levels of the inner child that I think hold us back. The other big one obviously is the anxious, avoidant, secure thing that I've been talking a lot about recently. This goes even back before my ex-stepmom though, from 7 to 16. This goes back to our relationship with our parents because anxious, avoidant, and secure. The anxious love attachment is somebody that leans in and craves love, craves validation. Somebody that in the relationship normally is a bit more needy. Somebody that says, once I get that validation, then I can feel worthy, whole, and complete. The avoidant, on the other hand, and the anxious has no problems giving love, but has problems receiving love. The avoidant is the other side of that coin. Secure, you're good. You can give and receive love easily. Most people are working to become more secure, but may have a more avoidant or anxious love attachment. A lot of times I find that anxious too, it means that there's like a necessity to try to control situations, to try to control their partner or the person they're dating, because that control means certainty and it reestablishes that attachment. And the thing with the anxious is that it's the lesson to learn how to give yourself that worthiness, that self-love. For avoidant, it's normally around trusting. So the avoidant, at a certain point in their childhood, had a certain level of trust that was broken. Could have been abuse, sexual or emotional trauma. And in that moment decided that I can't trust my parents, I can't trust this person, I can't trust someone in their life. And when that trust is broken, they then have a fear of intimacy, a fear of getting too close to anyone, so they will subconsciously push it away, or they'll find themselves attracting emotionally unavailable woman or man. And it's because there's this like wall up, this energetic wall up. They intellectually want the love, but there's a wall up to where they don't think they can trust it. So the avoidant has no problems receiving love, but has a problem giving love, because if you give love, you might get hurt. If you trust, you might get hurt. So the avoidant, it's meant to work more on their ability to trust. And the anxious, it's more on the ability to feel validated and worthy. Secure, you're good. Secure means you had a very balanced childhood. Congratulations, okay? I wish it were the case. But this is what the work is all about. This work is all about, a lot of us have gone through this stuff like this so that we can transform and create that pressure and then come out the other side transformed. So there's an inner child with the anxious that doesn't feel validated, needs weren't met growing up, nurturing wasn't in place as much. And then on the other side of that, there's the avoidant, and the avoidant doesn't trust. Maybe it was smothered growing up. Or the trust was broken, then it was put off to the side. So the inner child of both of these, it's very important for us to heal those inner. If we don't heal the inner child, the anxious will continue to feel needy, continue to feel like the happiness is on the outside and it's a moving target that's always moving, so it's very hard. The reason being is because it's like, well, my sense of worthiness and happiness depends on this person. And if they're not acting a certain way, then I don't feel that worthiness, that wholeness. So then it's an externalization of happiness. The avoidant, on the other hand, it's like there's a wall up. Anytime things start to get too close, you'll want to like push away. You want to find reasons. You'll start looking at the negatives. The anxious will look at the positives. The avoidant will look at the negatives. But that all stems from a childhood trauma, a childhood experience of either breaking trust or not feeling nurtured. So when it comes to the reason I know as well that like my inner child wants to come out play more and more, I've been doing this trauma release exercises where I do this thing where I put my fists on the back of my lower back and I bend back. And as I bend back, my body starts to shake and I can feel that there's trauma in my body from childhood. I thought I dealt with it because like I went through my awakening in 2012 and it's like, man, I'm done with this. But I guess there's still that trauma inside the body. And what I've been focused on recently is like releasing that trauma and feeling that energy. And a lot of when I get in these positions and I'm leaning back, even when people do Bikram yoga sometimes, they'll have these openings and these releases. And it's because there was trauma inside the body. And the thing is when you do these exercises, like trauma release exercises or tension release exercises, the other thing they're called, you're activating this energy. And if you let it be okay that it's there and you release it, sometimes it's screaming. For me, it's like laughing hysterically. I have a YouTube video coming out on this, and it's like me laughing. I do it, and I'm bending back, and I'm just like, ha ha, like, like that, like a big hearty laugh. Sounds ridiculous, but like just hysterically. That's a way of releasing tension. So, in a way as well, I think that I developed my inner child. The way I protected my inner child is I developed a wall, armor around my body, energetic armor in a way. I wouldn't let people get too close. Even in relationships, I wouldn't get too vulnerable, wouldn't get too close. Holds me back from having really deep, meaningful connections. I've definitely been working with learning to trust more because I think that my own sense of trust, because of the situation with my ex-stepmom, and maybe also not being able to really trust my dad completely because all this happened with my ex-stepmom, to feel safe, right? Didn't really feel safe. So that trust is like, I find myself even in my own business sometimes, different people I do business with and stuff, like, can I trust them? What about this? What about that? What if something goes wrong? Because I always had someone that was coming after me or like trying to find holes with what I'm doing. So these are different aspects of my own shadow that I wanted to share with you. And the process to healing is really about giving yourself permission to nurture your inner child. And to look at your inner child and literally start to develop an imagination where you, like, in your imagination, you imagine your inner child. What did you crave growing up? What did you miss out on growing up? What weren't you allowed to be? Well, who did you have to be loved? Who did you have to make happy in order for you to be loved? And what did you have to do to make them happy? Did you have to be perfect? What were the expectations? What were the standards? Were you able to express yourself, or were you shut down in that way? Were you told to shut up? What is your attachment style? Are you anxious, avoidant, secure? Do things have to be fun or serious? Do you feel trauma inside of your body? Do you view yourself as a victim? From my ex-stepmom situation, even after 16 years old, I kept attracting people in my life that were treating me poorly. It's a nice way of putting it. And from that, because I saw myself as a victim, I was always a victim. And until I decided to change that identity, there's a sense of significance for being the victim. It's like, don't you know what I've been through? Don't you know what I went through as a kid? You probably hear me talk a lot in my YouTube videos or my Instagram or whatever. It's in my story a lot. One of the reasons is because it helps people have storytelling is like the most important thing when it comes to content creation. First off, just to be honest with you guys. And even though I talk about it, doesn't mean like I'm angry about it or haven't forgiven my ex-stepmom. I talk about it so that people can relate to like painful past. They know they can transform it. But like I said, there's always layers to it. I'm not perfect. I haven't figured it all out yet. But I have shed the victim mentality. That happened back in 2012. Big chunk of it. And once I let that go and I started to view myself as like, it all happened for me, that's when everything changed. But I was getting significance from the pain of the significance I was getting from being the victim growing up. It's like, people don't know what I've been through. And I explained it to them. They'd be like, wow. Even my buddy Victor, I remember when I first told him what I went through, he was like, whoa. And part of me may have been like significance on the inside. Like, yeah, should you see what I've been through? Am I significant? But the key to this whole thing is to actually nurture your own inner child. To comfort your inner child. Let your inner child know it's safe. They're safe. They can trust. Nurture them. Show them love and validation. Literally, think about like the timeline. All time exists here and now. That's what quantum physics shows us. Your inner child is like stuck in the pain of the past. It's like stuck in the trauma that may have happened at a young age, the parents breaking up and divorcing, and then wondering, is it because of me? There's like a part of our inner child that's literally like stuck in the timeline in a way. It's like a metaphor, but quantum physics does show us that everything exists here and now. So imagine you developing a dialogue with that version of you that maybe wasn't able to trust at a certain point or didn't feel nurtured or supported. And imagine you giving and hugging that version of you, of telling them it's okay, of comforting them. You're safe now. It's okay. I love you. You are worthy. You are whole. You're perfect the way you are. And imagine that as you have this relationship with this past self, this inner child that's actually inside of you right now that may be wounded, as you do this in your timeline, you begin to heal that inner child inside of you. And as you give yourself that love, that validation, that support, that trust, you're going to find that leaks into other areas of your life. So a meditation for healing the inner child, I found, is just so powerful. The key to this, though, is doing the shadow work and being willing to look at some of the stuff that's not always so comfortable to look at. And also do the work to release that trauma that might be stored inside the body. That's one thing I've been doing a lot. Literally, I will scream, and I know the neighbors can hear. Yell. Get angry. Because when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to get angry. One time I stood up to my ex-stepmom, and it was like horrible choice. It wasn't horrible. I think it was natural. But the consequence of that, for me standing up for myself, was pretty harsh. And I can see how that pattern of me being afraid to stand up for myself back then, it's almost like I can see how that has leaked into areas of my life where I know it's natural for me to want to, express myself, to get angry even. But I think that when I was a kid, I decided that being angry was bad because I saw an ex-stepmom who was so angry. Anger is not a bad emotion. It's okay to feel angry. That's repressed anger I have inside. So when I do this trauma work and I'm yelling, I'm screaming, I'm releasing that energy from my body. It's almost like the inner child that wasn't able to be angry. They just had to take it, had to take the pain. But as I express it, I release it from my energy body, and I let it be okay that I feel it, and I don't try to bypass it. So realize it's okay to feel this emotion. Whatever comes up is perfect the way that it is, but your inner child work, the power of healing your inner child is giving you what you craved growing up and doing a meditation or an exercise where you literally love that version of you. You go to different times of your timeline as well. I imagine the 3-year-old version of me, the 5-year-old version of me that almost drowned in a pool, the 7-year-old version of me that didn't understand why the divorce was happening, or the 5-year-old version of me that didn't understand why the divorce was happening, the 7-year-old version of me when my dad met my ex-stepmom. I remember something felt off about her, but I remember I was getting a cast. I broke my arm. And we go, and that's when I met her, and she was just so serious, and she was so quiet, and I just remember feeling something was off. And then as she started to get more and more power, I started not feeling safe. Healing that version of me, the version of me that was in a lot of trouble when I was 10, 12 years old. 15 years old, all these, literally go into it and imagining that version of me and sending that version of me love, light, healing energy. And that for me has just been so transformative for me to go through and to do this kind of work. Something I'm doing right now, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm developing I guess I can kind of release it here. I'm going to be starting almost like a website that has to do with high vibe content, the high vibe portal for people to go to for content that raises vibration, but also shows people how to practically raise their vibration. And I'm developing a system for raising vibration and raising our level of consciousness, doing the shadow work, becoming aware of these archetypes that exist inside of us. And if you didn't know, there's what'smyvibration.com. You go to what'smyvibration.com. You calibrate your vibration, and you get a meditation for helping you get to a higher level of consciousness. Now, right now, what I'm doing is I'm redoing that whole entire thing. And this episode may come out 2 or 3 weeks after I make it, so hopefully it's ready by then. But go to what'smyvibration.com, calibrate your vibration, get a meditation for getting to the next level, and then you will get tailored content to your level of consciousness to help you raise your vibration to a whole new level. That's something I've been focused on lately. Child work's one way to raise your vibration. Child work, inner child work, okay? Inner child work. Other than that, let me know what you guys thought of this episode. If you guys want me to make another inner child work episode or something to do with healing or more shadow exercises, let me know. Other than that, I want to thank you guys for being here. And as always, I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Peace, much love, and namaste.